You know, when I say that design is about composition, in which it involves bringing different parts and pieces to make a whole, well, the next classwork is going to be just that, where we learn how to bring in different parts and pieces to make sure that certain things really make sense. But then, like I said, the foundation of all these things is to add it in simple forms so that you could know how to move from very simple things to actually getting maybe doing amazing things. So the goal of this design is to take you step by step forward to a point where you can actually attain and achieve that state of mastery. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and click on Control N to start a new document. And this time around, I'm going to clip my design to maybe a custom size of A4. As much as possible, it is what you or might literally be dealing with regards printing and some of the print sizes that you might be working with. So with that said, I'll go ahead and click on OK to start my design, and with foundation it's to show you what it is that we want to achieve. So with this picture selected, this is exactly what it is that we want to create. So I created this for one of my friends that was trying to sell some organic products and asked me to create a simple thing that they can just hang outside their shops, and so it could identify or tell people what kind of skincare products they had really available. So whatever it is, these are some of the requests that your clients are going to be making, and you have to be able to think through the process and think through the creatives as to how you can make things work for them. So without any further ado, I'm going to dive right back into my Corel Draw, and I'm going to start with the normal process. And the normal process is to first create a bounding box. So this bounding box is going to help me constrain my design so that it doesn't overflow, it doesn't spill over, and when I print, I don't get parts and pieces being lost, and I always have my design very up to date and cohesive. So the next thing I want to do is to remove this outline right here, and then like I said, the other thing that we want to do right now is to bring in the image as well. So bring in the image. So I'm going to come here to File and click on Import, and I'm going to go to where I think the file is going to be, and I'm going to select the file, and then I'm going to click on Import. By clicking on Import, I'm going to try to draw it till it constrains the proportions, and then I'm going to release. So this is the image, and then we'll start building up the process. So the next thing that I want to do is to double click again to bring the bounding box. The reason why I'm bringing the bounding box is it will really take me, you create designs from shapes, and like I said, it involves shapes and all this kind of things. So what happens is, instead of me drawing all these shapes over again, I just create a bounding box and I start to edit it from there. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is to try as much as possible to scale it down, okay, to where I know, okay, this might convey the message that's covering. Because I remember the last time that we did this, I was actually saying that you could either continue your design this way or make it full. So this is a way of like continuing the design that way. Now I'm going to click on Control Page Up to bring that shape up, and then I'm going to click on white to cover that space, and then I'm going to remove on outline because it looks very weird. Now with that said, the next thing I want to do is to kind of like make it look entertaining, because this is just like dividing it into half and it doesn't really look that interesting. So what I did was to now make it look interactive a little bit and just make it look new and make it look interesting to view. So what I did was to go ahead and click on the shape tool, and this is the most that you can do. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Ctrl Q, so that allows me to do much more than that, do the second stage modification of the shape tool. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag it there, and that's exactly how we had that. And then I'm going to move to the next step. Now it still looks like maybe it's covering the girl's face too much, so I'm just going to go ahead and just shrink that a bit, and then I'll go ahead and complete the other process right away. So the next thing that we want to do is to create this purple section here and this purple section here, and we're going to do that by still modifying the rectangle tool to get what it is that we're looking for. So without any further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and recreate the bounding box and bring it to the front, okay, and remove the outline and scale it to a section where I want to modify. Alright, Let's get to a section where I want to modify, and maybe this time around it was supposed to be maybe blue. I'm going to choose the color to supposed to be purple, so I'm going to choose purple color for what it is I want to do. Maybe this. Okay, I'm going to show you the other one, or maybe I may want to expand this and then pick a color that works. Okay, so that will be that. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to create a flow, an interactive flow. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Ctrl Q to change that, and click on the shape tool. You know, I already clicked the shape tool, and then I'm just going to go ahead and click one of the nodes, and it closes. So that's it. Is that simple enough? Okay, can we move to the next stage? So the next stage is actually replicating the same thing. So just going to go ahead and double click on the rectangle tool, Ctrl page up to bring it to up till it stops blinking. You see, if I press Ctrl page down, it goes backwards. If I press Ctrl page up, it comes up until it stops blinking. With that, I can go ahead and bring it to the area that I want to affect. So this is the area that I want to affect. Secondly, finalizing it, what I want to do is to now modify it from there. So I'm going to bring in the shape tool and then press on Ctrl Q and then create one of the bounding box. This is what I want to do, and bring this to this point and bring this somewhere here as much as possible, and then bring it to this point. So that's exactly what I did, and it's just some kind of a way of creating that interaction. So what I'm going to do is to Ctrl C, Ctrl V. Alright, Ctrl C, Ctrl V means to copy and paste, and then I'm going to come here and then mirror. And when I mirror it, I'm going to drag it to this point until it snaps. Alright, and I'm going to leave that. So that's the way I just created that. I'm going to highlight on the two and click on the color. These are the colors I've used so far. Instead of going to pick the color from here, I just pick the color from here and continue. Now, the color in this section, in this status bar, it's something that if you hand it over to another designer knows exactly what colors you've been working with, and so can continue with the set of colors. So that's why you have this section right here showing. I'm going to go ahead and move the outline, and that is just that for us. The next step is to start typing. Alright, so the next thing that we want to do is to go ahead and put in our text. So with putting our text, the first thing that we're going to do is to come in here and look at what was being typed, and we could go ahead and just replicate that. So what I'm going to do in bringing our text to type, I'm going to come here and click on the text tool, and then I'm putting here and start typing. So this is what I'm going to type. Okay, first thing I do is to go ahead and type it properly, and then I'm going to take my time to now start organizing it. So the easiest way I'll start to organize it, like I did in previous models, is to come here and just start to structure it in terms of properly arranging it. So the next thing I want to do is to go ahead and input some kind of hierarchy into this thing so that it's easy for someone to digest with ease. For example, like if you could see over here in the original design, you could see that the cosmetic products is actually what is more visible than the pure organic. So what you try to do is to try to communicate to a broader audience, and then you try as much as possible to use the less important information to maybe communicate to help filter. So you could see that I'm using cosmetic products, and then the pure organic is to filter those who are interested in the organic cosmetic products. Okay, so cosmetic has to do with the broader view, and then the pure organic would actually try to communicate or filter second level into those interested in the organic. And then the other ones are actually to guide people into taking action. So that's how simple it is when you design. So hierarchy is very important because it allows people to take away information or structures your design in such a way that someone can understand what is very important and takes it away with ease. And then you structure it so that, because you have 3 seconds to communicate, so it helps you to structure whatever you're doing from ranging from the most important to the less important to least important. This is a strategy, and this is the principle that I've always been sharing, and this is the strategy that I've always been applying, and which other experts actually apply, that makes design feel cohesive and makes design to actually work. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is to go ahead, before I start arranging it in that way, I like to bring in the font that I want to use. So the font is going to help me to see an overview of how these things work. So the choice of font is very important because fonts really matter. So for the choice of font, what I'm going to do is to come here and type in a font. Okay, so this is the font that I'm using, and this is the font that we're going to be playing with. So with that said, what I'm going to do is to go ahead and break this apart. But before I break it, I'm going to come here to the shape tool and just bring it contextually closer so that I could see how it looks like cohesively. Alright, so the next thing that I'm going to do right now is to break it apart and start organizing it from the most important to the less important to the least important. And that's how hierarchy is brought, and that's how communication actually works in design. So I'm going to go ahead and press on Ctrl K, and with that said, the most important information is this cosmetic product. So I'm going to make it really, really big. So I'm going to make it really large and try as much as possible to center it on the page, because I said that one of the major principles that works for text is hierarchy and then alignment. So I'm going to try as much as possible to stick to one form of alignment, which is what I normally say, and then stick to one color and one font, which at the end of it, we're going to change the design to have the same look and feel as the color theme that we've already started generating. So with that said, the next thing I'm going to do is just to scale this a little bit down and try to arrange it in terms of proximity. Look at the nearness of information to each other so that everything will feel so much more like it's uniform. Now, the very last thing that we're going to put is we have to put our call to action. And our call to action was actually sold here. So what I'm going to do is just to drag this and duplicate this there. Just to drag it and right click is going to duplicate. Just to drag with your mouse or whatever, and then you right click, is going to automatically duplicate. So what I'm going to do is just double click on it and then start typing my sold here. Now there's a principle I want to show you. Although I have said that you should stick to one color and one font, you can actually break the rules, and for this context I'm going to break the rules, and that is by supplementing my design with a secondary font. So you could have a primary font which carries the major information, and then you have a secondary font that tries to supplement what it is you do so that it can actually communicate differently and actually show the contrast between this information and this set of information, and makes everything cohesive. So it's not just about sticking to one color font. Sometimes I could stick to one font and have different weights of it, which is the typefaces and the font sizes and the font style or the family of font, but I could also change the font and just bring in the font to communicate ease of action for my end user. So as much as possible, what I'm going to do is to click here and then change this font to the one that we've been using so far, which is Bebas. We're going to just change it. I'm going to click the drop down and click on Bebas bold, okay, and then try as much as possible to duplicate the font so everything feels cohesive. So if I've used sold here, as you can see here, I'm going to also try as much as possible to replicate this inside of this. So I'm going to do that. If I right click and drag into this other text to the point where it shows the A icon, it's going to give me options that I can choose from, and the option that I want to choose is not to move into text, more like the power clip, or not to copy into text, or just to copy the field. What I want to copy is the entire structure of what was already being typed. So that's how I'm going to work with this. So I'm going to click on copy all properties, and you can see that it's automatically changed. If I try that with this one, maybe I right click this into this, check what is going to happen. I click on all copy all properties, so it copies the entire property of what really existed into the new element they are trying to paste the property into. So it's the same thing that could happen within shapes. So if I take on this shape and I right click it and I on another shape, it's going to ask me if I want to copy properties. So if I click on copy properties, that's exactly what it's going to give me. So that is a way in which you could copy one property of a particular shape, or all the entire property, or all the information on a particular shape, or a particular text, or a particular element, and then transfer it to another element within the context of your design. So that's exactly what I want to do. For the purpose of the demonstration, or for the purpose of this design, I'm going to go ahead and stick to the original font which I use for the sold here. So what I'm going to do is to still use the same process and then right click it and drag into the sold here and then click on copy all properties. So those are some of the shortcuts, and those are some of the techniques that makes working with CorelDRAW easy and effective for you to get started with. So with that said, what I'm going to do right now is to go ahead and kind of like create a call to action button, or maybe like a sold here kind of slider banner which I created there. So what I'm going to do is to just create a box around here just to create that level of contrast where it creates visual emphasis to what it is I want to guide the reader's eye towards. So with that said, what I'm going to do right now is just to modify this, and to modify this, my shape tool is going to help me to modify that. And when I want to modify this, the most that I can do for these design or for this shape is just to drag it in, and that's not exactly what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is to press on Ctrl Z, and since the shape tool is still selected, I can go ahead and click on Ctrl Q to bring in the second function of the shape tool. And if I double click on here to bring in the node, I could drag it in. If I double click here to bring on the node, I could drag it in, and it creates that kind of banner feel for me, like so. The other way that you can do it is to come here to where you have polygons and shapes, and then if you check on the banner shapes, you can actually come here to the options toolbar and then select or any pre-existing banner templates and shapes that actually suits you. For me, I just wanted something simple and just had to show you how to create that interaction playing with the tools that I already introduced to you in previous models. So with that said, finally, what I'm going to do is to give this a color, which is also in trying to achieve that harmony and balance, and then bring this backward, okay, and then bring the text forward. And the principle of contrast, where it says that you have to make things to be distinctly different, I think it's hard for me to read sold here from the background. So what I'm going to do is to apply contrast to it, and by that I'm going to change the text to white so that it feels readable. It's easy for the user to actually read through it. So finally, after achieving this, the next thing I want to do is to try to make the interactions here to be very, very cohesive. So what I'm going to do is to break this text apart and make the 30% off to stand out by itself. So I'm going to press Ctrl K, and when I press Ctrl K, I'm going to click on this one and just scale it down a little bit, and then bring this one to the center, don't worry, and then scale this one downwards. But since I'm not so sure of the size of scale and I want everything to be uniform, I could do the same thing, in which I could copy the properties from here and paste on this one so that they both share the same cohesive properties. And I click on copy all properties, and with that I can bring these two together like so. So after all being said and done, next thing I'm supposed to focus on is to make everything a little bit center aligned so it can work for me. So with that said, that's just how I want to do. Finalizing these things is to make everything to look cohesive by changing the color and readjusting my arrangement properly so that everything can feel very much uniform. So I'm going to come here and then click on this and click on the same color, and you can see that everything looks right okay, like so. So if there's anything that I want to do, if it's still not giving me what I want, I will just come here and just increase this 30% off a little bit and bring it right to the center, and then click on this ones and scale a little bit and bring it to the center here. So if I want it to have the same look and feel or the same property, I just drag it inside and then try to arrange it like so. So in case I'm not too sure of what the sizes look like, can drag down my ruler. That's where you just drag down from this ruler section. That's how you drag it. You just drag down from the ruler section. I'm going to click on the ruler and then delete it, and from there it will help you to structure it properly on the same line. So with that said, we're almost wrapping up, and what I'm going to do is just to carefully arrange this by clicking on the right or the left arrow key to properly arrange it using my visual eye to see if it could be centered. With this said, this is a very beautiful design and we've almost come to the end of it, except that we've not saved our project. So it's essential for you to save your work so that you can actually send the original file for printing and also send the other preview file to your customers for that edit. So if we look here and we look at this, there's not much difference in our design, only that the fact that we could choose to scale this so it creates that hierarchy that we are looking for. And this is a very, very beautiful piece, I'm telling you, and we've gone this far because we've gone this far together because you guys, my friend, are the ones that are doing this with me. Okay, so the final thing that we want to do is to save this. So the way that we save it is to come to File and then we click on Save As so that we could give our document a name that works. So I'm going to come here and call it Cosmetic Design Banner. Okay, So you learn to save your files very, very properly. So with that said, the final thing that I'm going to do is to now export this to JPEG so I could send it to my client for preview. And that's the first file that I'm going to send. And if the client has changes to make, I come back and change it. And when everything is said and done, I use this raw file, and this is what we parcel it and compile it, and we send it for printing. The final thing I'm going to do is to come here to File and then click on Export, or I could go ahead and click on Ctrl E, and everything is going to export, and I click on Export. It's going to render in high quality, and then go ahead and click on OK. So that's just it, my friend, and that's just how you make these things to work and to stand out. What I just did is to do a little bit of hierarchy based on some visual things that I'm seeing right here, and there's nothing so much that you really want to do other than those kinds of things and all these little retouches. So this, my friend, is how we do designs like this. This, my friend, is how we make things work. And we've come to the end of this model. Can you see how everything looks very, very, very cohesive? So I want to thank you for joining me. I want to thank you for sticking around up to this moment. I want to tell you that it's a lot that you've learned so far, and I want to believe that you can be able to move from point A right now to actually creating amazing graphics that work. Final touches is how to play with logos. So should you have a logo, I just want to show you a silhouette of how to place a logo should you have one. So I'm going to come here and click on my ellipse tool and try to draw a circle, and then come here and click on the text tool, because a logo sometimes could come up with an icon, or it could come up with the text, so the icon and the text working together. The whole idea is to show you how these interactions will look like. So I'm going to come here and click on logo, okay, or click on my logo, so you could understand what it is, and then try as much as possible to scale it out and then put it properly near the shape. So I'm going to give the shape a color and try as much as possible to remove the outline, and I'm going to make this logo a little bit thicker or intense. I'm going to just try as much as possible to delete that, and then with the tool selected, I'll just scale it down and then bring it somewhere here like so. So with that said and done, depending on the size of the logo that you're looking for, but I think that's the least the most important information. What's supposed to be attractive to the person is the information that you want to communicate, and that's exactly what it is that we were trying to do. So look at how beautiful this design is, and you could go ahead and click on Ctrl S to save, and you could see how the save icon showed itself here. You want to know if you've saved. If you come here to File, you see that the save is blurred out, which means you automatically saved your work. With that, I could also export it the second time and maybe give it cosmetic banner and maybe give it 1. There are some times where things like this would always happen, where you could have option 1, option 2, option 3, and then you get to send to your client to be able to choose which one best works for what they want to do. So it doesn't look like you're trying to decide for them. It also looks like the fact that you are taking them along your creative process, where you're actually helping them to establish what it is that is in their mind and what it is that will work to their own best interest. So with that said, we've come to the end of this model, and we've come to the end of these introductory to CorelDRAW, introductory to graphics design using CorelDRAW software. On our next model, we're going to be looking at Photoshop in depth and how Photoshop can be used to manipulate and modify pictures. It's really, really used for modifying and manipulating pictures with ease. So we're going to learn concepts from retouching, we're going to learn concepts from compositing, we're going to learn concepts like rendering, we're going to learn concepts that involves retouching, compositing, and rendering, and things like so. So with that said and done, I'd like to congratulate you for sticking with me, and I'd like to see you in the next model.